All right, if you're a startup, you know that buying security testing can feel like a minefield. So, in this explainer, we're going to walk through how to build a startup proof statement of work, or SOW, that lets you sign on the dotted line with complete and total confidence. Let's get into it. Let's just start with a hard truth here. Most founders, and I mean most, only learn to respect a good statement of work after they've been burned by a bad one. And that pain, it always seems to pop up at the worst possible time, right when you're trying to ship a big feature or close that crucial enterprise deal.
And here's the fundamental disconnect. You think you're buying a really thorough security validation, right? Something that's going to make your big customers feel safe. But what you often get, because of a vague contract, is basically a scrapbook of screenshots from some automated scanner. It's not actionable, and frankly, it doesn't prove a thing to anyone who knows what they're looking at.
So, what makes being vague so dangerous? Well, let me tell you a painfully common story. This is a perfect example of how a fuzzy SOW can quietly create some very expensive chaos for a growing company. It all started with two little words in the contract: credential testing. Seemed totally harmless, right? The startup just kind of nodded it through. But, and this is the key, they didn't put any guardrails around it. No language about, say, how many login attempts per second were okay. So what happened? The vendor's automated tool just started hammering the login page. And that, of course, triggered the single sign-on provider's own defenses, which started locking out real paying customers. All of a sudden, the support queue is just absolutely on fire. Not good. And listen, the most important part of this story is that this wasn't a malicious attack. It wasn't even really the vendor's fault. It was a purchasing failure. The contract, the SOW, was silent on lockout thresholds or what to do if things went sideways. It wasn't treated like the steering wheel for the whole project, and the company paid the price in downtime and angry customers. Okay, so how do we make sure that never, ever happens to you? You do it by building a strong SOW spine, a framework of really specific clauses that are designed to protect your uptime, your budget, and, most importantly, your reputation. Now, you don't need some 100-page legal monstrosity. No way. In fact, our source material boils this whole thing down to just 12 critical clauses. Think of these as the backbone of a truly startup-proof pen test contract. And here they are. Now, all 12 of these are important, for sure. But here's the key insights. Most of the pain, the expensive confusion and the late-night headaches, it all comes from getting just 3 of these wrong. So let's zero in on those 3. We're going to lock them down. Because this is it, right here. This is where the battles over what gets tested, how to do it safely, and whether you get any real value out of it are won or lost before the test even begins. First up, scope. Your job here is to think like an engineer, not a poet. Saying test our web app is just mush. It's an open invitation for problems. But defining the target as api.yourapp.com/v2, that's magic. It's precise. There's no room for error. Same goes for user roles and the exact environment. Get specific. It will save you so much grief later.
Second, the rules of engagement, or the ROE. And please, do not just skim this part. This is not boilerplate. Think of the ROE as the safety manual for the test. It is literally the thing that keeps your pager from going off at 3 a.m. It defines the rate limits, it prohibits destructive stuff, and it makes sure you have to explicitly opt in for sensitive tests like phishing.
And that brings us to the third critical piece. It all boils down to this one simple question. The test is over, a report hits your inbox, but what does done actually look like? How do you make sure that report is a valuable asset and not just another PDF that gets forgotten in a folder? You've got to define it in writing up front. So what should you be demanding? Your SOW has to call out a minimum package. You need an executive summary that tells a clear story about risk and business impact for your leadership. And, just as important, you need a detailed technical report with step-by-step instructions so your engineers can actually find the bug and fix it. When you nail these 3 clauses, scope, rules of engagement, and deliverables, something really powerful happens. The whole point of the pen test changes. It stops being just another expense, and it turns into something way, way more valuable. See, a strong SOW creates a predictable, valuable process. It starts with a clear scope, it runs inside safe guardrails, it produces useful reports, and it even plans for how you're going to verify the fixes. It's all about preventing surprises and building real, tangible trust with your customers and your auditors.
So here's the bottom line. You're not just buying a report to check off some compliance box. With the right SOW, you are literally building defensible evidence of your security posture. It's proof that you can show customers, investors, anyone that you are taking risks seriously.
And that really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. The next time you're looking at a pen test contract, ask yourself, am I just buying an expense that's going to get filed away? Or am I investing in evidence that actually makes my business stronger? The answer is right there in the details of your SOW.